Hello guys, welcome back, and today we're going to do an energetic reading about John Travolta. I don't really know him very much or his work, just a few films and movies, but I was very interested because he's an extraordinary person, an extraordinary artist, and I wanted to know what kind of energies shaped him, shaped his career, maybe his life. So, what is his karmic journey here? What is he here to learn? And through his journey and through his energy, we're going to learn about ourselves just as much as we are learning about human karma and human energy and how this all is connected and is shaping us. So I hope that you're going to enjoy yourself. And if you would like to join me, then just allow your own psyche, your own subconscious to give you information. Just listen without judgment and allow these sensations come to you, and your subconscious will read the energy automatically. You just need to learn to listen to it and interpret it. So let's start then. So what we here see is an older picture of John Travolta. And let's start with this picture. Now, the energy that I'm getting is that of a mask. I'm sensing a quite strong mask that he created around himself. He shaped it, and deep inside there is the true self, but it is buried very, very deep. And this mask is a piece of art. It's artfully shaped. At this stage of his life now, he mastered the craft of using his energy to create this persona or to shape this persona that he has. What I sense within that, so behind the mask, it feels like there is a well, a deep well, and there somewhere deep in the dark there is the true self. It's sitting there, not really acknowledged, not really accepted. It is like forgotten or buried. It belongs to the past, so it is isolated or disconnected from this present self. It feels like this person placed his center of gravity into this gestalt, into this persona that he created and that he now controls, more or less. But deep inside there is that part of him which is denied. There is the true self. It's interesting to see that this new persona is very thick, so it's very strong, and yeah, it's a heavy structure, so to speak. Okay, let's see how he got here. So as I'm looking through the pictures, I'm sensing again, behind the mask there is the self, there is pain, there is also playfulness. So you can sense that the true self is kind of lonely. The true self carries a lot of sadness. It carries a lot of pain, but it does that in quiet. So it's a quiet, true self. It's not rebelling. It's not fighting. It's very accepting in a way. So there is deep sadness and pain, but the other side of this self is a self which is very playful and vibrant, creative. It's an intuitive kind of soul. So he's not really an intellectual type. He's more of a feeling, a sensing type, an intuitive type. So there is this female energy within him, which is accepting, embracing. It's sometimes goofy, playful, childlike. Now this is important. And now, as I'm tapping into the early stages of his life, which is about, I don't know, his early teenage years and then his teenage years, he is very shapeable, plastic. He's pure. So this soul is very pure. You can even call him naive. Naive and trusting, very gentle, very smooth and soft. He's very feeling. He's very empathic. There I can sense a fear of rejection, a strong fear of rejection, a strong fear of conflict, of open conflict. So this person, especially in his early years, he's terrified of violence and conflict and cruelty. He's very empathic and feeling. And also he's a very simple soul, so to speak, in a positive sense, that he loves the simple joy of life, sunshine, laughter, and friends. So he can appreciate the beauty of life. He sees the beauty in life. He's really a pure soul. There is not much ego involved there. And I'm speaking really about his early years now. And as we go then back to the beginnings, I can feel that he doesn't know his own value. He doesn't understand and feel the value of this playful, childlike, pure, vulnerable self. Because he is vulnerable. Very vulnerable. You know, I can sense a person, a soul who can cry like a child. These honest tears. So he is very pure and gentle, but he is very naive or unprepared for the life that he's going to have. So he's very trusting and naive in a sense, because he's a simple guy, as I said. So what you see is what you get. He's not really playing although there is a very strong need for acceptance in him, a very, very, very strong need, and the fear of rejection. So he needs to be accepted. He needs the support of other people. And he can be very supportive and accepting himself. So, but he's very insecure in his abilities, in his worth. It's kind of he didn't experience much attention or acceptance in his early years. So it's like he needs that approval from outside, and he would work his ass off just to get the approval, to be good enough, to be good enough. So his main drive and motivation in his early years, as far as I can feel now, is to be accepted, to prove himself that he's good, he's good enough, to get that approval, to get that, clap on the shoulder. And he's very childlike. Okay, now let's see some earlier pictures to understand this boy or this man better. Now we have an earlier picture. Yes. So here the true self is not yet disguised, is not yet buried or denied. It is very much on the surface in his early photo. But even on this picture, you can feel that he's insecure. He's not sure about himself, and he kind of doesn't know who he really is. He's waiting others to tell him who he should be, and he will be the person that others expect him to be. So he's very shapeable, very, very plastic at this early stage of his life. And in this childlike mental space where he is, as I said, he's really a simple, feeling, intuitive person, and in a positive way. So I mean, he's simple is in a positive way, like a child who's close to his roots. So he is expecting or accepting others to tell him, because he doesn't know. He has no clue who he is. He has no clue what he is able to do or what he's capable of. He has no clue what he should be. But he has this incredible thirst for approval. So, and he also wants to please people. He wants this atmosphere of acceptance, of love, of peace, of joy. So he wants to please people. He's a people pleaser, really. Maybe later he was expected to behave like a macho, but he is not. No, he's a very sensitive person, a very empathic, positive person, caring for others. Community is very important for him. He wants to belong somewhere. As I said, he wants to be accepted. So people are important. Connections, friendships are very important for him. He means that because he's a what you see is what you get kind of soul. So he is not a manipulative. He doesn't have a hidden agenda, whatever. He truly feels what he feels, but since he's so unsure, he's so shapeable, I can feel that he's like an open door to anyone who needs this plastic material in their hands to take advantage of. So he's trusting, and he's kind of believing that what people say is true, and what they say, they mean that. And he's trying to please. So he would really work incredibly hard, and he would even sacrifice parts of himself just to please and become what others want him to become, what others tell him that he should be, what others tell him that is the best. So he's believing, he's not really thinking for himself. He doesn't trust his own instincts, although he's a very intuitive person. Now, as I can see or sense in him, there is this huge vulnerability. And as he is being shaped, into a success formula, and he's allowing it, he is even happy about it, because first what he sees and what he senses is approval, and he would really go miles for that. He would do anything just to please people, to meet their expectations. And he's working hard. He's really doing his best. He's doing his best not to disappoint. This is again a fear to disappoint others, not to be good enough for them. And again comes this feeling of fear, fear of being rejected. And as I'm looking at the right side picture where he is older, it's an interesting transformation. The openness is no longer there. He hid behind a mask. So this is a man who in these early years didn't find out who he really was, and always accepted who he should be and tried to live up to that. And after a time, he so much denied his true self, which is in a childlike state. It's not developed. His true self didn't get really mature. It didn't have a chance because he didn't find out who he really was. So this facade that people created, so he became a product of other people. This facade became thicker and thicker. And in this right picture, he is at a stage where he learned to take control of the facade. So it's no longer others who are creating him. It's he himself. He is expressing his creativity now through shaping this facade, even experimenting with it. There's a level of freedom now, but on that level of playing with the facade. So I'm free to be who I want to be, kind of. But with that, he's only changing the facade. He's not reaching down, deep down, into that well where he buried the true self. And he's getting better and better at manipulating his facade. There is an ambivalence here, partly taking back control or taking over control over this facade and over the persona that he is now, or that he has now. But also there is still this cautiousness of not stepping on anyone's toes, or not really exposing himself, because what I'm sensing here is a part of himself, an internalized audience, or a critical self, so to speak. But it's not his own critical self which kind of denies parts of him. This is an internalized voice. It is an expectation or an assumption what those other people would reject about him, what they would not approve of. So he has become kind of his own prisoner, in a sense. And he is the guard of that prison, because he is seeing himself through the eyes of those people who judge him and who expect certain behavior and a certain personality, a certain kind of vibe, so to speak. So on the right picture, he's much more self-aware, but on the level of the persona, as I said, so on the level of that created facade. Deep down, the true self is still very vulnerable, still very soft, and even undeveloped in a sense that it's a part of him is like a child still. And with this self-awareness, or how should I put it, this kind of critical awareness of himself, he also kind of suppressed that initial vibe that he used to have, because his openness, as you can see on the left picture, there is this openness, there is the fear within, there is this insecurity, a lack of confidence. But with that also there is this playfulness, this goofy child. There is this happy, laughing, joyful, emotional, even sometimes too emotional self. And this is what's creating that innocent and also beautiful vibe around him. And that is lost. It's not lost. It's buried very deep, very, very deep inside. He denied that. He kind of feels like, looks back at that self as someone that's died, that's in the past, that's no longer existing. So that's what I'm getting from him. And it's also, I can sense this kind of experimentation with this facade, with this persona that he created. He's not just experimenting and learning to control his body and his looks, but he's also experimenting with the persona, the personality that he's expressing. So it's not just acting, it is a learning process of being someone. So he experiments with being this kind of person, then a bit being that kind of person, and we can feel that he still hasn't really learned, hasn't found the true initial self. So he kind of needs to, that's what I feel, he kind of needs to become the father of his own inner true self, which is still a child, but buried so deep inside. And here on these photos we can see that this gentleness and joyfulness is there. It's very funny. Yeah, the cats are having an argument. And we can also feel the pain, the sacrifice of a soul who gave up himself and couldn't really find himself, couldn't really open himself. So the karmic journey, if I would need to summarize his karmic journey here, is to find out who he was, to take back control over himself and not allow others tell him who he should be. Now he did that because he wanted approval. And now it's so ironic that he gets the approval from the outside because he is famous, he is a great actor, he is acknowledged, he is popular even. But there is this voice about which I talked that I'm sensing in him. The internalized critic which does not approve of his true full self, which he didn't have the chance to fully explore, never. And another thing, so this is the karmic lesson, that you can get all the approval from the outside, or seemingly get all the approval and fame and fortune, and he seems like a lucky person on the outside, but deeply inside, if he doesn't learn to be himself, and that's when he learns to feel approval and love for himself and not waiting for others to give that to him, he will always be kind of isolated from himself. And that's what I'm sensing in this picture. I don't know how you are feeling, but I feel that behind the mask there is a person who closed himself up, he is giving the audience or the world what the world expects him to give, what the world still expects to see. He's giving this because he knows now how to give that, how to please people, but he's giving the facade. He blocked himself, he closed himself up. Deep inside there is a person who is unseen. So the world appreciates the persona, the world approves of and loves this facade. And there is a soul within who feels kind of unseen, invisible. kind of in the shadows, unimportant. I can also feel a certain amount of sadness. Yes, it's a quite big amount of sadness, but acceptance and guilt, and accepting pain as that's what I deserve, or that's actually what it is, what I get. So it's very, very interesting. Now in this picture he has another vibe, and I'm interested how well certain actors are able to change their energies for the role. And you know what I see? That he learned to master this facade. So this facade is really, really strong. It's a mask, and he's playing with it very well. He mastered it, but it comes from being able to observe and absorb the energy of other people. And now what he saw and what he sensed and received from others, he is able to create it within himself. So he's imprinting it on this facade. His creativity moved from this natural, instinctive, playful, vibrant energy, which came, it's the energy of a young puppy. So this natural energy moved now to the facade, where he is a conscious creator and manipulator of this facade. I don't feel actually any negative vibes of him. I feel sadness and guilt. So he is the type of person who would blame himself first. He's not someone who would blame the world and feel entitled to things. On the contrary, he's not feeling entitled. He's blaming himself. He's accepting. So he's his worst judge. He's his worst judge, and I feel that there is a need for him to accept himself more and forgive himself, because he's being very, very strict with himself in a way. So this is surprising for me. Another thing that I wanted to know about him is his relationship with his son, with his deceased son. As far as I know, I have heard that he used to have a son, and now I'm curious whether I can tap into that kind of relationship or karmic lesson. What I'm sensing here is a very gentle bond, a very, very gentle, unique bond on the level of the true self. It's interesting because it feels like his child resonated very much with his own inner child. And it feels like the child had that freedom of self-expression, of expression of his feelings and energies and whatever came, that John never allowed himself, or at least he learned to deny it from himself. And in this relationship, he could be himself. He could be this immature self, this childlike, pure, vulnerable self, this primary true self. There was no agenda, because it feels like he very early had to learn that people have second thoughts, they have agendas, they manipulate sometimes. So here in this relationship with his child, it feels that John had a freedom, a very unique freedom that he rarely experienced, a freedom and true acceptance. It is not a kind of acceptance that you receive from an audience, popularity or success, but there is a kind of acceptance which is just natural, because the other person is not playing a role, the other person is not trying to show or deny or suppress feelings. It's authenticity, and it's being his true self. So his child showed him how to be himself, how to be just to be true. And that's what John didn't learn at that age, and he didn't trust his own self, his true self. And it's so sad. And that's why this bond is so gentle and so loving and so true, because it's very authentic. It's very true and authentic. And also there is this childlike self of John, which kind of had a free go here, some free space, but also there is this becoming an adult. So kind of he needed to grow up to a certain degree, and he was enjoying caring for someone. He was enjoying this thing, but also there is the feeling of trying to please others, not really being able to say no in many cases where he felt that he didn't want to do things, but he was not really able to say no. And it feels that John really denied lots of things, lots of parts of himself which were so crucial to him. They were so crucial. So he sacrificed a lot just because he didn't know who he truly was. So his journey is about learning and accepting and loving who he truly was, and becoming in control of that. So it's a very interesting story, and I'm happy that I got to know him a little bit better, because who I see here is really a beautiful soul who is going through a very hard journey. It's amazing that so-called successful people are going through incredibly hard journeys, incredibly hard lessons. And I am really amazed with how much acceptance and dignity John took these lessons, and he's learning. He is still learning. He's still experimenting, creating, learning in this journey. So it was a wonderful reading. I hope, guys, that you liked it, and if you liked it, please subscribe and tell me what you think about this session, about John, and who you would like to hear from in the next video. See you, guys!